Crypto with 150 million users is growing at 113% a year. So
Wow.
we go, because it's an exponential trend, we go from 150 million users to 1 billion users by 2024. That's how fast this is growing. Currently, it's a $2.5 trillion market cap. If we look at how fast tokenization is eating into other assets and growing itself, and we look at those adoption numbers, then the reality is all of the other asset classes, global equities, global bonds, global real estate, are all between 200 and 350 trillion, with the derivative market being 1 quadrillion and FX even bigger. So the thought process is that therefore, if crypto goes to 250 trillion, which sounds about right, and it's
100x in 10 years
of an entire asset class, we've never seen anything like that. Mankind has never seen a larger wealth creation opportunity in a shorter period of time in all of history. Even oil didn't happen as fast as that because there wasn't enough uses for it. This, because it's digital and built on top of the internet, means you've kind of got Metcalfe's law on top of Metcalfe's law. So the exponentiality of the returns is simply gigantic. Now, let's say Raoul's an idiot and it all goes to zero. So the downside is, let's say I'm going to use Ethereum and let's call it 4,000. So we lose 4,000, but if it goes 100x up, you would take that risk reward forever. Now, it's not going to zero. Is it going to go down 50% to 2,000? Let's say that's the risk. So it's 50% downside, 100x upside. Okay, that's a 200 times risk reward. You know, this is why nobody cares about most of the macro stuff anymore, because we all saw the rise of the other Metcalfe's law business models like Amazon, Google, Facebook, Apple, even Tesla. And we're seeing this again, but in an entire asset class of which we can participate this time as both participants in the networks and owners of the networks. And it's available to everybody.
Yes. I mean, I'm basically 100% on board. I spoke also about over 10 years, looking at 100x being very possible. And you get laughed at, you get snickered, like that's unrealistic. And I don't know, maybe it goes up 2x in 10 years, maybe 50x, maybe 200x. But if you look at the growth curve, like what you mentioned, and Metcalfe's law, I think you could put 2 and 2 together and make the argument for a portfolio of crypto and digital that could do very, very well, better than any other asset class you'll ever invest in. But you have to change your paradigm of what you're used to. Maybe start off small. I started off small.
The whole point is, if I'm right, and let's say you're a cynic and you put in 1% and I'm right, you can still make 100%. Right? You can double your net worth with a 1% allocation. So you can be a cynic and take the bet, or you can be like me and put, you know, a large part of your liquid net worth into it because you really want to capitalize on it. Fine. You take your journey, you take your risk profile. That's all good. But to not have it makes no sense whatsoever. Again, you might not like it. You may not agree with it, but nobody cares what you think. The market is what matters, and the adoption effect. Again, you know, people become emotional about assets. You shouldn't get emotional. You should look at the cold hard facts of it.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I've been talking to my member families, which are pretty significant. And I mentioned to them, I'm probably one of the most active, I'm not the largest, but among the most active investors in the community that you'll ever know, like use me. And I would say even now, when I talk about it so much, maybe I'll get one call every 2 months. I mean, it's so that actually shows me the potential. That shows me billionaires and others have not totally jumped on board yet. And we're going to talk about them in institution shortly. My big picture question for you is, I had you on a year ago and you said most of your liquid net worth was in Bitcoin. I follow you very closely. I know that has completely changed in the last couple of months. If you could describe to my audience how you reposition your portfolio and why.
Yeah, the shock, there's no shock that I sold out. I haven't sold out. I've kept adding all the way through. I just switched my portfolio towards Ethereum and now almost entirely sold out of my Bitcoin and invested more in Ethereum and then a bunch of other tokens as well. And that was based on an understanding of network effects and how many people were joining the Ethereum network and the number of applications being built on it, which is basically what drives Metcalfe's law, the value of the network. Also, I noticed that the community within Bitcoin was a little too overly tribal, and that was forcing people out of the community. So we've got one community that's shedding members because it's not welcoming, another community that's very welcoming, that's growing extremely fast. And, I'm a macro guy at heart, so I just look at the chart of ETH versus Bitcoin and it was going to break out. So I just moved all my eggs into a different basket.
Well, and
if I'm looking at it right now on my Bloomberg screen, ETH's up 430% this year and Bitcoin's up 65. So it kind of worked.
And I believe, let me know if I'm wrong, aren't you even levered in Ethereum?
Yeah, I own calls. I've got some calls in December that's probably going to expire worthless. And I've got calls out in March. So I don't use leverage in a traditional sense of, where I can lose my position. I bought call options because then it's premium and I can write it off and I don't care.
I completely agree with you. We all start off in Bitcoin, and there is an element of what's called Bitcoin maximalist. I'm not going to include Breedlove in there. He's somewhat more open-minded and more of a freedom maximalist. But even he basically said, Angelo, you're so complex doing all this research and investing in 40 different crypto and tokens. Might you get those same returns by simplifying your life and being in Bitcoin? And you know what? You might be right, Robert. At the end of 10 years, maybe I complicated things more than I needed to. But if I look at the metrics and mathematics of Bitcoin, I'm sorry, I just don't see it going up 50 or 100x over the next 10 years. I like it. I think it's going to do well. But my thesis is I like other things better that are going to make me more money, maybe with a little bit more risk.
Yeah, and I'm with that too. And there is a probability that the Bitcoin maximalists are right and Bitcoin becomes the base layer money of the world.
It's
possible. It's possible. Is it stuff? This is every single penny.